Hey everyone, Cody Hayes here, and I'd like to welcome you to this lecture where we are going to be looking at rights, justice, and Aristotle's golden mean. Aristotle being the ancient Greek philosopher, and that's going to be the image that we are going to see throughout the lecture of Aristotle, there on the right, lecturing to his most famous pupil, Alexander, better known in history as Alexander the Great. And it's often thought that one of the reasons why Alexander was such a great conqueror, statesman, was that he was the student of Aristotle, as Aristotle was more than likely the smartest man walking the Western world during his time. So, two forms of ethics with looking at rights to begin. One is what is called descriptive ethics. Well, descriptive ethics, it describes or observes a particular ethical theory, but it makes no judgment about it. Now, in contrast, you have normative ethics. Well, normative ethics, it would evaluate a particular ethical theory, and it does make a judgment. In terms of the ethical theories that we have looked at, so far this semester, I would put psychological egoism as a descriptive ethic, in that basically it states that we are all naturally self-centered. We can't be anything but self-centered. So because, there's no choice involved, a judgment can't necessarily be made alone with that theory. Whereas with normative ethics, I would say ethical egoism would fall in there, because ethical egoism is the notion about how we can choose to look out for others, we can be altruistic, but it's not in our best interest to do so. It's in our best interest to look out for ourselves. Well, there's a judgment that, yes, we could do this, we could look out for others, but that's not what we should do. We should look instead out for ourselves. So to continue on with rights here, have natural rights. Well, natural rights are the notions that it's a right that everyone is awarded with according to nature, just for the simple fact of being born. So basically a right that everyone is given just for the fact that you're born. The English philosopher John Locke made the argument that natural rights everyone has access to are life, liberty, and property. Thomas Jefferson, who was a student of Locke in many ways, kind of added to that, but he argued life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness. Next, you would have natural law. Well, natural law is the notion that what is right or what is wrong must be in accordance with the laws of nature. When I think of natural law, when I think of this term, I often think of this incident that took place a number of years ago. It was a presentation that was given by Dan Savage, a gay rights advocate. And when, I don't know if it was, the Q&A portion of the presentation or what specifically, but someone, asked, what about, homosexuality in regards to the Bible? And this is not, verbatim what Savage said in reply, but he stated how we can ignore the ridiculousness in the Bible, and that caused a bunch of individuals to, walk out of the presentation. Well, sometime after that, I remember that James Aiken, a Catholic apologist, gave a response to Savage, and I don't think Aiken necessarily did a very good job, although he said his time was limited on how much he could respond, and as someone, who, does videos like, this, I understand that there is so much amount of time you could say, because he mentioned that Savage engaged in what he called machine gun apologetics. But I remember how Aiken mentioned that, okay, Savage finds what's in the Bible to be ridiculous. Well, even if he finds it to be ridiculous, in case of homosexuality, that doesn't really matter because it's contrary to natural law. And traditionally speaking, it is contrary to natural law. And the reason why is because if two people engage in same-sex acts, they don't reproduce. But challenges have been made to that notion, and I would say probably the beginnings of the challenge would go back to 1975, when the APA, the American Psychological Association, which is a huge, group of psychologists, both in America and I would also say worldwide too. Like if you write a paper in psychology, you write it under the APA guidelines. That's how big they are. Well, in 1975, they removed homosexuality from their list of behavioral disorders. And they essentially declared you cannot turn a person who is homosexual into heterosexual. Or contrast, you can't turn a person who is heterosexual to be homosexual. Well, in keeping that, that notion with natural law, that ruled by the APA, I think of a statement that Richard Dawkins made on this subject where he stated, maybe homosexuality is just a natural form of population control. There's that word natural there. So that, makes the issue something that would arguably be reevaluated in at least the concept of natural law. But to continue on, we have what's called fundamental equality. Well, fundamental equality is basically the idea that everyone is given a fundamental right according to their government or their legal system. Again, not that everyone is literally equal. Some people are taller than others, some people are stronger than others, but according to their government or their legal system, they are each given the same fundamental rights. Next, you have social equality. Well, social equality is the notion that everyone is treated equally so long as they are in the same social setting. Again, not that everyone is, literally the same. I mean, some people are taller than others, some people are stronger than others, some people are what other term you want to name. It's different. But when they're in the same social setting, they are all treated the same. They are all given the same equality. Next, equal treatment for equals. A controversial term, as the principle is often considered elitist or unethical because who determines what an equal is? I would say that it probably, if you were going to, take equal treatment for equals, and the ethical notion here, that probably the person that would be stating who an equal is would be someone, I guess you could say someone like me, or, whomever, some official is. Well, what makes that person necessarily so special, per se? Well, then by contrast, you have the notion treat equals equally and treat unequals unequally. Well, this is an attempt to try to make equal treatment for equals ethical by stating that those who are equals and unequals depends on a particular situation. Here's an example that I would say, treat equals equally and treat unequals unequally would work. Let's say that, everyone on the road has to follow the same rules of the road. You have to follow the speed limit. You have to stop when the stoplight is red. You have to stop at the stop sign. You have to follow all those rules. Everyone has to do that. But let's say that your pregnant wife or girlfriend, whatever the case may be, is in labor. Well, because she is in labor, that allows you to essentially break the rules of the road. That you are allowed, to speed to the hospital, you are allowed to run stop signs, red lights, and whatnot because of that situation. But once that situation ends, then you have to go back to everybody else. So it's only in particular situations that you are allowed to say break the rules. So, well, we'll stop here, and then when we come back, we will look at some more issues regarding rights and also get into a little bit of justice too. So take care. I will symbolically see you then.